Hi everyone. Welcome to day 9 of the Move and Write series. Today's theme is transformation. So with transformation being our theme, you're going to get to participate in and kind of witness and really keep in the forefront of your mind the transformation of this flow that we're going to build together. So we're going to build a flow together, watch it grow and change and transform, and then I'll give you your journal prompt at the end. Couple things as always, I am just here as a guide. Please follow your body, take any modifications you need, or if you're just not feeling what I'm doing, feel free to do your own thing. This is your practice. I am just here to offer suggestions. Secondly, if you are a music person, or even if you're not, I would still recommend and suggest putting on a good playlist, playing some good music while practicing yoga. I know it's one of my favorite things to do, and I've got it quiet in here, so you can listen to whatever you'd like. So, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start in child's pose position. So we've got options here in child's pose. You can keep the knees together as you send the hips back towards the heels. Or you can open the knees up a little bit closer to the width of your mat, opening up the hips a little bit more, sending the hips back. And if you decide to keep the knees together, you have the option to bring the hands alongside your legs, turning the head to one side. Starting our practice with some big, deep, grounding breaths. And dropping whatever we were doing before we stepped onto the mat. And dropping whatever we think is going to happen when we get off. Staying present with this moment. Noticing that the present moment is eternal. It is always available to us. Starting to feel the body melt toward the ground. Feeling the back, the whole back expand and release with every breath. Allowing the earth in your mat to support you in this position. Noticing whatever feelings or sensations arise. Being a witness to those. Starting to roll up, so lifting the body off the ground and coming into a tabletop position. We're familiar with this position, placing the hands underneath the elbows, underneath the shoulders, and the knees underneath the hips, taking some cat-cow movements here. So cow on your inhale, dropping the belly, lifting the heart forward, raising the head up towards the sky. And on the exhale, rolling into cat position as the spine rolls and rounds as you pull the lower belly in. Inhale, looking up for cow pose. And exhale, rolling into cat. Starting to take your own organic movements here. However the spine wants to warm up today. Whether that's taking some barrel rolls, some circles with the torso, or maybe just wiggling the hips back and forth. Maybe it's moving back onto the knees and forward onto the wrists. Take a moment to come into cat pose, so round the spine, pulling the belly up, and just kind of linger in this shape for a few breaths. Feel into the back of the body, the shoulders, really up around the upper back, around the neck. Kind of wiggling back and forth into those spaces. Usually end up getting pretty tight, so showing them some love. Keeping the head heavy. Find a neutral spine here. Start to roll over onto your left hand, so lifting the right arm up towards the sky, straightening the right leg behind you for a supported side plank here. So keeping the left knee down, straightening out the right leg and the right arm up towards the ceiling. Starting to awaken the shoulder here, so finding some circles, really exercising the full range of motion of that shoulder blade. Maybe you feel like opening a little bit more, so maybe pulling that right arm back, opening across the chest, rounding underneath, taking whatever motions feel good, exploring a little bit. Sometimes we don't know what will feel good till we start moving and just exploring. Coming back onto the hands and knees in tabletop position, we'll take this supported side plank to the other side. So putting all the weight on the right hand and the right knee, straightening out that left leg, keeping it on the ground, and lifting the left arm up towards the sky. And once again, finding what movements the left side of the body needs. Feeling into the shoulders, into the whole side body. Maybe just stretching towards the front of your mat feels good. Once again, trying opening and closing here. Keeping that lower belly tucked in, keeping space in the low back. Come back into a tabletop position. Consciously pull the belly button in up towards your spine, so engaging that lower part of the belly so the lower back isn't sinking. Start to straighten your right arm out in front of you and straighten the left leg out behind you, flexing the foot. Creating some balance here, really feeling the traction in the spine, the opposite directions as the right arm's pulling forward and the left leg pulls backwards. If it feels good to you today, start to reach that right arm back as you bend the left foot and grab it with the right hand for dog dancer pose. A little more opening across the chest. If this isn't in your practice today, you can always stay here. Or if this balance isn't in your practice, you can keep the foot down. Just lift the arm. One more breath wherever you are. Exhale, come back into a tabletop position. Maybe kind of walk the hands and shake the hips back and forth a little bit before we go to the other side. So once again, pulling that belly button in up towards the spine. Lift the left arm out, straighten the right leg behind you, flexing the foot. And once again, just noticing what it feels like to have one half of your body pulling forward and the other pushing backward, and finding balance in those two oppositions. If you'd like here, start to reach behind with that left arm, grabbing the right foot, opening up the front body. And of course, option to stay in the first pose or to stay with the foot down, just lifting the arm. One more breath wherever you are. Straighten that arm and foot. Come back to tabletop position and send the hips back for child's pose. Just lengthening out the back. Coming up into tabletop position, planting the feet into the ground, sending the hips back for our first downward facing dog of the practice. As always, in the first downward dog, give the knees a generous bend. Feel into this shape today, walking your dog a little bit. Finding the breath in this inverted position. And let's create some movement here. So on an inhale, start to move through the spine out into plank pose. And on your exhale, send the hips back into downward facing dog. So inhale, really work through kind of rolling through the spine into plank. And on the exhale, rolling in the opposite direction of the spine, sending the hips back, downward facing dog. Move between this downward facing dog and plank flow in your own pace with your own breath. And just start to feel the space being created through these movements. Staying conscious of the breath, conscious of where your body is and what it's doing. We'll all meet in downward facing dog. Or we will start to walk the hands in toward the feet towards the hands. Pausing in a forward fold. Just releasing all of the weight, being generous with your knees. Letting all the tension just melt off the body. Slowly start to roll up, straightening the legs, keeping the feet rooted into the ground. Stacking hips on tops of knees, shoulders on tops of the hips, neck on top of shoulders. Really feeling the length of the spine here, feeling the crown of the head reaching up towards the ceiling, almost giving you a nice lift off the ground. At the same time, feeling the foundation of your feet on the earth beneath you. On your next inhale, lift the arms up overhead. Exhale, folding forward over your legs. Inhale up to a flat back. Exhale, hands down to the mat, stepping back into plank. Putting the knees down immediately and lowering all the way down to the belly. Rising up on the inhale for a baby cobra pose, so staying low to the ground. And exhale, sending the hips up into downward facing dog. Pausing in downward facing dog. On your next breath out, walk, jump, or step the feet up in between the hands. Inhale up to a flat back. Exhale, hands down to meet the mat. Inhale, rooting to rise, arms lift up overhead. Exhale, fold forward over your legs. Inhale up to a flat back. Exhale, hands down to the mat, stepping back into plank, moving through your choice, your version of your vinyasa. So maybe you do the chaturanga into upward facing dog and send the hips back for downward facing dog. Taking 2 breaths here. At the end of your next exhale, walk, jump, or step the feet up in between the hands. Inhaling up to flat back. Exhale, hands back down. Inhale, rising, lifting the arms up overhead, reaching up towards the sky. Exhale, folding over the straight legs. Inhale up to a flat back. Exhale, hands back down to the mat, stepping back into plank. Once again, choosing your vinyasa here, choosing your path, choosing your journey, and meeting in downward facing dog. And we'll start to build our flow. So keeping this idea of transformation in the front of our minds, just staying conscious with the word and really witnessing and experiencing how this flow grows, transforms, and changes. So inhale, lifting that right leg up towards the sky. Exhale, swing it up in between the hands. Keeping the ball of the back foot and the heel off the ground, rise up into a high crescent lunge. Pausing here for just a breath or two to really feel this shape and this stretch in the body. One more inhale here. Exhale, folding to frame the front foot, stepping back into plank, and sending the hips back for downward facing dog. On your next breath in, lift your left leg up towards the sky. Exhale, swinging it up in between the hands. Staying on the ball of the back foot, rising up into high crescent lunge on the left side. Pausing for a couple of breaths here so the body can just feel the shape, feel the strength. On your next inhale, exhale, folding over that front foot, stepping back into plank, and sending the hips back for downward facing dog. Let's start to build. Inhale, right leg up towards the sky. Exhale, swinging it up in between the hands. Coming up into a crescent lunge on the inhale. And exhale, opening up for warrior two. So opening the hips to the long edge of your mat. Feeling the new sensations that are created in this shape here. One more breath. And on the exhale, kind of cartwheel the arms down to frame that front foot. Stepping back into plank. And sending the hips back for downward facing dog. On your next inhale, send the left leg up towards the sky. Exhale, swinging it up in between the hands. Staying on the ball of your back foot, rising up for crescent on an inhale. And opening up to warrior two on your exhale. So noticing the growth and the change that's taking place each time we start to go through these movements. Inhale here. Exhale, cartwheeling the hands down. Stepping back into plank. Pausing for a moment. And send the hips back for a downward facing dog. Inhale, lift the right leg up towards the sky. Exhale, swinging it up in between your chest. Inhaling up for crescent pose. Exhale, opening up for warrior two. On the next breath in, flip that right arm up towards the ceiling. Start to lift it back for reverse warrior. So keeping the front leg bent, creating space in the right side body. Making sure to not put pressure on that back knee. The back hand just kind of slides down the leg. One more breath here. Exhale, cartwheel the hands down to frame the front foot. Stepping back into plank. And sending the hips back for downward facing dog. Inhale, left leg goes up to the sky. Exhale, using the core to send it up in between the hands. Staying on the ball of the back foot. Rising up on the inhale for crescent lunge. Exhale, opening up to warrior two. And inhale, flipping that front palm back and lifting that front arm upward for reverse warrior. This is also called peaceful warrior. Breathing into this shape for one more breath. Exhale, cartwheel the hands down, framing that front foot, stepping back into plank, pausing for a breath, sending the hips back for downward facing dog. Knowing you always have the option when we go into plank to move through a vinyasa if you feel like it. Inhale, send the right leg up towards the sky. Exhale, swinging it up in between the hands, staying on the ball of the back foot, rising up into crescent lunge. Exhale, opening up into warrior two. Inhale, flipping that front palm up, coming into reverse warrior. And exhale, start to straighten that front leg as you reach the right arm out towards the front of your mat and folding down into triangle pose. So hands falls either on the shin, maybe closer to the calf, the ground. Breathing into this shape, noticing how the movements all compound on each other to support the growth, to support the transformation. On your next breath out, bring both hands to the ground to frame that front foot. Stepping back into plank, option for vinyasa here. Or send the hips back to meet in downward facing dog. Inhale, lift that left leg up towards the sky. Exhale, swinging it through up in between the hands. Inhale, rooting to rise, rising up for your crescent lunge. Exhale, opening up to warrior two. Inhale, flipping the palms, leaning back for reverse warrior. And exhale, start to straighten that front foot, reaching out towards the front of your mat and falling into triangle pose. Feeling the openness of the shape. Taking one more breath here. Exhale, placing the hands to frame that front foot, stepping back into plank. Vinyasa option here if you would like to take it. And meet us in downward facing dog. Inhale, lift that right leg up towards the sky. Exhale, swinging it up in between the hands. Rising up off the back heel for crescent lunge. Exhale, opening up to warrior two. Inhale, flipping the palm for reverse warrior. Exhale, start to straighten that front leg as you lean forward, create space, moving into triangle pose. On your next inhale, start to put all your weight on that front foot, circling the arm around, coming up into half moon pose here. So lifting that back leg off the ground, pressing the heel into the wall behind you. If this balance is too much, you can always keep the back leg on the ground and kind of play with lifting it. This pose is hard. Transformation is hard. Growth is hard. Change is hard. But the breath is always there. Our constant reminder. One more breath here. Slowly start to lower that back foot back to the ground. As you come and land into triangle pose once more. And exhale, come back down, framing that front foot, stepping back into plank. Option to move through your vinyasa if that feels good. And meeting in downward facing dog. Left side this time. Left leg lifts up towards the ceiling. Exhale, swinging that foot up in between the hands. Inhaling up into crescent lunge. Exhale, opening up into warrior two. Inhale, lift that back palm, lift the palm up, rising back for reverse warrior. Exhale, start to straighten that front foot, reaching towards the front of the mat, coming into triangle. And on your next breath in, start to circle your arm as you put all your weight into that front foot, coming up into half moon on the left leg. Sometimes we notice in times of changing or growth that we discover new things about ourselves. We do things we thought we couldn't do before. Or we can't do something that we thought we could do before. Learning how to move through those times, accept those times, and still grow in those times can be a really valuable lesson. Sometimes just stopping, getting still with the breath is all we need. One more breath here. Slowly start to bend the front foot as you bring the back foot down, landing back in triangle pose. Taking an inhale here. Exhale, framing that front foot, stepping back into plank, choosing to go through a vinyasa or not, and meeting in downward facing dog. So now that we've grown our flow into the beautiful blossoming flow that it is, we're going to do it together once on each side with one breath per movement. So inhale, lifting that right leg up towards the sky. Exhale, swinging it up in between the hands, staying on the ball of the back foot. Inhale, rising up to crescent lunge. Exhale, opening up into warrior two. Inhale, leaning back for reverse warrior. Exhale, straightening that front foot, reaching to the front of the mat, coming into triangle. Inhale, start to circle that hand as you put all the weight on the front foot. Exhale, bringing the arm all the way up for half moon. Inhale, start to bend that front foot back as you bring the back foot towards the ground, landing in triangle. And exhale, cartwheeling the hands to frame that front foot, stepping back into plank. Doing a vinyasa if it suits you right now. And meeting in downward facing dog. One more time through this flow. Inhale, reach the left leg up towards the sky. Exhale, really engaging the core, bringing it up in between the hands. Inhaling up, high crescent lunge. Exhale, opening up into warrior two. Inhale, flipping that palm for reverse warrior. Exhale, starting to straighten that front foot for triangle. As you inhale, start to circle the hand, putting all the weight on the front foot. Exhaling up into half moon. And as you inhale, start to bend that front knee as the back leg meets the floor. Exhaling into triangle pose one more time. Exhaling, cartwheeling the hands to frame that front foot. Stepping back into plank. And let's all go into child's pose here. Honoring the transformation within. Start to walk the hands towards the knees, coming up to a seat. Rolling onto your butt. Facing the long edge of your mat, and bring your legs out wide. Inhale up, raising the arms up overhead, and start to fold to the right. So bring that right arm on the inside of your right leg, stretching through the left side body. Bring that left hand to meet the right foot, and slowly start to walk the hands towards the center, reaching out in front of you, leading with the heart, moving with the breath to breathe into the stretch. Slowly start to walk the hands over to the left foot, keeping that left hand along the left shin and raising the right arm up, creating length in the right side body. And also feeling the stretch in the hamstrings, the inner hips, maybe in the low back too. Inhale, coming up to a seated position. Start to bring your feet in, coming into easy pose, a comfortable seat here. So maybe grabbing a pillow, blanket, or a block to go underneath the hips. Getting comfortable, placing the hands wherever feels appropriate today. So when witnessing the transformation we just went through in these last 30 minutes, witnessing how our asana practice, our postures, our movements changed, grew, knowing that this practice is available to us off the mat. You have permission to change. You have permission to grow. You also have permission to mess up. Doing new things can be scary for multiple reasons. Fear of failure, fear of what others might think, fear of just not being good. Coming on the mat has taught me that leaning into growth, leaning into transformation, leaning into change just continues to open up new parts of me that I didn't know existed, that would have stayed locked away somewhere deep. Sometimes it can be messy to open those parts, but it's always worth it. The lessons learned, the people that it brings in or introduces me to, it's always worth it. We're all in this together. We're all in this process of learning and growing and changing together, giving each other and giving ourselves the space during these times of growth is vital. As one of my favorite teachers, Ram Dass, says, we're all just walking each other home. Bringing the hands to the heart in Anjali Mudra, palms together. Honoring the most valuable teacher who lives within each of us. The light and the dark within me truly sees, honors, and loves the light and the dark inside of each and every one of you. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me today for day 9. Our journal prompt following this flow today is kind of more of, I guess, journal instructions, but I want to challenge you to get out your journal and write down every transformation, growth, whatever you want to call it, change that you've witnessed yourself go through. I think sometimes we forget how much we've grown and changed and have transformed in our lives. So I want you to really think about it, sit down, reflect, write down all the times, all the ways that you've changed and grown and transformed. And just kind of rest in that power and know that you have the power and the strength and the permission to continue growing, changing, and transforming. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love y'all. I'll see you next time. Bye.